Hello, I wanted to do a slightly different kind of video today, mainly because I've had a look at other people on the internet, on YouTube and so on, BookTube, elsewhere, and anxiety is a really common thing. So I thought I would share my own experiences. Obviously this only counts as my experience. You don't have to have gone through the same things or equally as bad or not as bad or worse, in order for it to really affect you. It's something that I think can just happen. All I can do is share my experiences and see if other people relate to it or, in any kind of way. So yes, that's what I'm going to do. Some of the things I might talk about will be strange or worrying. So just gonna throw that out there first. I had my first panic attack probably when I was about 9, which seems quite young, maybe, I don't know. But I was having some trouble at home, not just divorce, although that did happen. It was... I won't go into that. Nothing too major, just it wasn't good. But I remember at the age of 9 and being in assembly. We had a new headmistress and she made us have assembly more often than we were used to. She was very religious and it wasn't supposed to be a religious school. And she would talk about Jesus and going to these long sermons, which none of us were really used to. I mean, they'd kind of talk about Jesus in the morning sometimes, but this was like a whole new level. Every morning we were going in for assembly. And at home there'd been quite a bad sort of argument between everybody. And the next day during assembly, I suddenly just knew that I had to get out of there. I didn't know why. There was no reason for it. I just felt really scared. And it was a mystery to me. I felt this strange sense of if I didn't get out of there, something terrible was going to happen. And I put my hand up, and because the headmistress was in full flow about Jesus, she kind of harshly whispered, "Put your hand down." And I did, and I kind of sat there for a second. I just remember my body being completely tense. And really what I wanted to say was, I'm scared. I don't know what's happening. I need help or something. And one of the other teachers, they'd all sit in rows along the sides of us, the side of the room. One of the other teachers said, kind of whispered to me, "Are you all right?" And bless her for that. Thank you, Miss Wiltshire. And I said the first thing that I could think of that would get me out of there, which was, I need to use the loo. I didn't, but I just needed to get out of there. So I went into the toilet and I hid in there. I don't even think I went, I just kind of hid. And then after a while she sent another kid in to ask after me, and I said, "Oh no, I'm fine. And then that was kind of that for a while. But it sort of set a trend of the loo being like a safe place, and if I get really stressed out, I want to go and hide in the toilets. It sounds like some sort of gothy teen, but if I'm really stressed out, I go and hide in the toilets. It's inexplicable, but that's just what I do. And when I won't skip ahead, then I went to a secondary school, which is, where's that in America? I don't know. High school, I guess. Went to secondary school, and suddenly towards the end of it, I think as the exams were approaching, I kind of I wasn't very good at getting on with the other kids. I was really quiet. I mean, I was really quiet in class. I wasn't with my friends, but in classes I was very quiet, and I couldn't really sort of handle being made fun of. I know that sounds daft, but it used to get to me somewhere deep. And I just remember suddenly I got that same feeling back, and saying to the teacher, "Can I go to the loo?" And then going off and hiding in the loo. And every time I tried to get out of the loo, I would get another surge of just pure terror. And that would keep happening over and over. I would try and leave, and then I couldn't, and that would carry on. And one time I remember I asked to go to the loo, thinking I am just going to go to the loo and then go back to class. That's what I will do. But I went to the nurse's office, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why it was happening. And I went to the nurse's office and just said, I feel really ill. I couldn't explain it any further than that. And then the teacher came by and was furious, because obviously I hadn't told him that. I just told him that I was going to the loo, so he was angry, obviously. But no one really understood what was going on, and that's not their fault. It's just that it wasn't a thing that people immediately thought of. Obviously, I even went to a child psychologist when my parents divorced, and he didn't pick up on it either. I guess I didn't make it clear. I don't know. Anyway, at university, or college, as you Americans will say, if there's any Americans, I kind of had a bit of a break from it. However, the anxiety never left me, and I always felt like I was overcompensating for being horribly shy, and that made me like go into overdrive, into being this really loud, annoying person. And I would drink too much to not be in that terrified position of having to speak to strangers and not knowing what to say. And it's things which do make other people nervous would become like a horror film, you know, to me. So yeah, I kind of overcompensated and was annoying and was not happy with myself for a long time. I didn't really know who I was or how to deal with things, I think. I got through college relatively unscathed, I suppose. But then when I left and I went to stay in Dorset for a little while, I met a man. I won't say his name. And again, like I say, there's not always a big reason for why people's anxiety will get worse. It just so happened that these things coincided with me. That's what happened to me. I met a man, and he was very mentally abusive. And one time we were having this stupid argument in the middle of town, and he turned around and grabbed me by my throat and held me up off the ground, so my feet were dangling and I was held up by my throat. And I remember looking into his eyes and seeing, like, it sounds cliche, but I remember seeing this cold, hard enjoyment in that this was really what he'd been wanting to do, and he was giving in to something that he had been wanting to do for a while. I was only with him for a few months, but yeah, it didn't really do me a lot of favours. And then he punched me in the face and let me go, and I kind of fell to the floor in a crumple. And then some nice people ran over and to help, and he'd already gone. And they brought me to a police car, and the policeman took the details from me and then said, so you'll be wanting to press charges? And I said no. I felt embarrassed. I felt like it was my fault. I felt embarrassed that I'd annoyed him to that point. Yeah, so nothing happened there. But then after a while, we sort of limped on, but I hated him. But we limped on and rented a flat together. And then one day I just kind of realised, God, why am I with you? I really don't like you. So in the middle of an argument, I said, I've had enough. I don't want to be with you anymore. And he was furious and started playing really loud music. And it was intimidating. You know, I try and joke about it, about how stupid he was, but it was intimidating. And I had this tiny room because usually we shared a room. I went into this tiny room and was lying on a cushion. There was no bed in there. And I thought, okay, so I guess I'm just going to have to continue the lease for the next 3 months or 6 months. I can't remember how long we had it for, until the lease is up. Yay. I didn't have any friends in Dorset apart from 2 people who I knew from my time in college. If we were at mine, they'd come around with me. I didn't want to be on my own. And then one day, his mum would come back with him, I don't know, to get stuff or something like that. And it kind of set a precedent that they would come back to pick up stuff or do whatever, or to check up on me, to be honest, I think they were doing, and complain about how filthy the place was, and have a go at me about something or other. And wow, it's really raining. I'm gonna have some more tea. And then one day he said something about why are they always here, as in my friends, and I said they're here because I don't want to be here on my own. And his mum kind of got in my face and pointed her finger and said, accusing someone of domestic violence or whatever the words were is not okay. And to this day, if I hear people say is not okay or waste of space or something like that, I can't bear it. I can't. And I turned to him and I said, well, are you gonna tell her? And he kind of visibly stepped back and didn't know what to say. And his mum kind of turned away and mumbled, oh, well, if he's done something, then I guess I can understand. But it didn't kind of stop there. If he wasn't there giving me grief in person, at night I would get these text messages that said, I've figured out a way to get into the house that's not through the front door. I'm going to unscrew the... oh God, I can't even remember what it was. I'm going to unscrew this... oh, something about... and basically go on about how he was going to slide in at night when I was sleeping and kill me. So yeah, that's what happened there. Eventually, I rang my letting agents and said, I can't stay here. So anyway, me and one of the friends that I knew in Dorset, who was my ex-boyfriend, my love life used to be really complicated. I'm sorry about this. I won't go into it because it's just going to confuse you. He used to be my ex-boyfriend, but when I was having all this trouble, he was really a good friend, and eventually we both decided to leave and go to Brighton, because we'd talked about going to Brighton before, and he became my boyfriend again. But that's when the panic attacks got probably the worst that they've ever been. I fully felt like I was going mad. Around the same time I started getting pains from endometriosis as well, which is a whole other, thing. And And so every time I left the house, I would worry that I was going to be in real pain. It kind of all felt like all converging at once. But I remember I would walk back from work and think, you've got to get home as fast as possible because you've got to go and hide in the loo. And I would walk really fast, but that didn't stop me from having basically a huge panic attack on the way. It was pure primal fear. That's what it is. It's pure fear. There's no reason, no logic, just pure fear. And all I would think is get in somewhere, get home, or get to a loo, which sounds really weird, but that's what happened. And one time I just decided that no, I needed to be safe right now. You know, just walking home, it wasn't enough. And I went into a pub and I said, please can I use your loo? And they said, it's only for customers, which is what all of the pubs would say. It's only for customers, which fair enough. I think Brighton had it has quite a bad heroin problem, and they'd had some problems, but I couldn't let it go. I was in a state that was completely animal. And I said, well, I didn't say anything. I just ran towards the loo, like blindly. I ran towards the loo and she grabbed me by my collar and dragged me out physically. And she was furious, but I guess that was their policy, and they didn't want anyone to go to the toilet illegally. I just remember the shame of the look in my boyfriend's eye. He was just completely like, and then he said, what are you doing? Like that. And I just remember feeling like I wanted to die because I couldn't believe this was happening. I was terrified. I still hadn't managed to get in somewhere safe, and now he hated me, and that would happen quite regularly. I mean, not running into a pub towards the toilet. He found it really embarrassing, and you know, he couldn't handle it, and I can't blame him for that. I can't, because I don't know, at the age of, what were we, 21, 22? I don't know if I could handle something that I didn't understand like that either. So, you know, I'm sure if he had a girlfriend and it happened now, he would react very differently. I did for a few months live with another boyfriend in Salisbury, but that kind of didn't work out. I just eventually realised that what I needed to do was go home for a while and get better. I was back at my mum's and I couldn't leave the house. Or if I did, I would just be terrified until I got back. And eventually Mum convinced me to go to the doctor, and they put me on something else at first, fluoxetine. That didn't really work. They moved me onto citalopram, and that worked a lot better. But I also had CBT, and the relief of CBT is not the going through the motions of what they do, although that does help. The real relief of CBT is finally saying to another human out loud, I have such terrible panic attacks that I feel like I'm going to die, and if I don't find a loo wherever I am, I'm in a state until I know where there is one. And to say that to people out loud, it was a group thing, to say that to people out loud and not have them look at me like I was a complete nutcase was really, it was like a weight off. It was incredible, and it was a huge step towards sorting things out in my head. Eventually, after a while, I was able to leave the house okay. I mean, I used to go out bowling with friends, and then we'd pay, and then I'd have to go home. You know, this is how it was. But now, I can go bowling, and I can do all these things, I do need to know that there is a loo, otherwise I am still anxious. That's just my brain. I'm not going to get around that. And if we go anywhere by car, I can't be in the car for more than an hour, but we stop somewhere, we have a bit of a break, and then we carry on if we're going anywhere far. So now, having had CBT and just generally it leading me to be more open about it and talking about it and just telling people right off instead of acting like it's this big burden of shame, I can just say, this is what I need in order to feel all right, you know. This is what I'll have to do. If I travel in London, I tend to prefer going on my own because I know that I can just go in and sit down somewhere. God, it's really coming down. It's not a thing that's ever going to go away. I've accepted that. I at one point thought there was going to be a magical cure, but it kind of turns out that I've got a panic disorder, which means that I've had it for so long and it's so ingrained that this is just who I am. But I'm fine with that. And I decided that one of the things that had been making me anxious and depressed and like probably drinking too much was that I hadn't been very good at being on my own, so I should really try that. After a year or two I did sort of try online dating, but I kind of figured that I'm not in a massive rush. I need to meet someone who is the right person, cheesy as it sounds. And I ended up being on my own for either 6 or 7 years. I think it was 6 actually, which is quite a while. But by the end of that time, I really knew who I was. It sounds like a cliche, like, oh, figure yourself out and things like that, but I really needed it. I really needed to, and now I know the kind of things that I enjoy doing. I know the kind of books I like to read, films I like to watch. I mean, I was always very into books and films anyway, but I really knew who I was. I mean, obviously I'm still learning, everyone's still learning, and there's stuff about me I probably can't admit to myself, like everyone, but I'm not bad at the whole knowing myself thing, I think. And I finally did away with the sense that I have to be fun and loud, and I did away with that. I said, that's not who I am, it's not making me happy. I'm a quiet person, I was always naturally quiet. That's who I am. I mean, the thing is, social anxiety and anxiety, it's never going away from me. It might leave you. I'm not saying it won't ever leave you if you start experiencing it, but for me it's kind of a fixture. There are times when someone will talk to me and I won't know what to say, so I'll freak out, and I either won't say anything back or I'll say something really strange that sounded normal in my head. And I know that it's cool for people to say that now, but it's the thing that happens and it's not comfortable. But for me it's not about being better or normal or something like that. It's about knowing who I am and just kind of accepting that. And it was when I was in that kind of frame of mind that I went on a date with Bill, and we had so much in common. I wasn't sure about him at first because he was a bit drunk. Like, he got a bit drunk and I wasn't into that anymore. But I met up with him again, and we had a really nice time at Ripley's Believe It or Not museum. And it had been a long time since I had really met someone that I wanted to be with in that sense. Like, for real. And it just sort of happened quite naturally. And he's like a walking human sedative. And I know that however strange I am, and however, I say to Bill, I've really got to go, or something like that, he'll just say, okay, And that's what you need. You need someone like that. He'll just say, okay. And it won't be like a, oh God, not again, or anything, you know. Like, I'm not saying that I would be angry with someone if they were disappointed that I couldn't do something, but it's just so much easier knowing that the person that I'm with is so easygoing. And if he stays with his friends and I need to go home, he's kind of fine with that. And that's, you know, that's one of the reasons it works. So yeah, that's my kind of story. So yeah, I mean, I'm still on anxiety tablets. I'm still, you know, I'm still a nervous wreck, but I get by and I'm happy. So hopefully you will too. Tell me your experiences and how you feel and how it's going for you, and in the comments below. It's good to talk about these things. It needs to be out in the open and less seen as a weird thing. Okay, bye.